Okay, where do I begin? So it's been a while. I was super sick, and that kind of sidelined me for a little bit. So last weekend, I was still doing bookish things. I was cataloging my all of my books and sorting through them and all of that good stuff. I think I culled another 20 books on top of the 30 that I culled before my trip down south, which has worked out excellently for me. I'm in a purging mode. I purged other things like clothes and food, and I have been purging food. That sounds really terrible. I just meant like my pantry. I cleaned out my pantry and I scary things in there. Three-year-old salsas and things. It's always mind-boggling to me that I live in such a time of abundance. I mean, I am not by any stretch of the imagination an excessively wealthy person. Although compared to most people in the world, I am, but I'm pretty ordinary for where I live. But to live in a time when just ordinary people can have so much stuff, to me is just mind-boggling. And I'm not, well, actually lately I have been a bit more of a shopper. So anyway, but in any case, bookish things, I cataloged all of my books. That's something I had started like 4 years ago when I got into Goodreads, and then I just got sidetracked with health issues and things and never got around to finishing it. So that was last weekend's thing to do. And I had gotten started on reading some other books. And then I came across somebody's video. I believe All D maybe was the name. I don't know whose channel that is. I'll have to go back and find it. And then I'll link it below. She mentioned that she was doing Buzzwordathon with Booksandlala, whom I just adore. And anyway, when I started doing this, I seen all these things on BookTube, and I kind of thought, oh, that looks like a lot of fun, but I'll probably not do that just for a lot of reasons that are my own. But then I totally got sucked into this because I had culled all these books, and then I thought, oh, well, I had this idea in my head. When I was finished, I said, all the books on my shelves, most of them are TBR. I have books that I want to reread someday, but I've put them away in boxes and just because I don't feel like getting more bookshelves right now. So anyway, I decided like all the books on my shelves are books that I genuinely want to read, and I could just like walk over to any book and pick it up and be like, yes, that book, I'm excited to read it. So, because even with that, I have 250 books to get through. So I heard about the Buzzwordathon and I thought, oh, well, that would be an excellent way to test my theory. So the buzzword was numbers. And so I went through all of my library. I pulled out all the books that had numbers. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. I do have a record of that somewhere. I took a picture, so I will look for that. Anyway, and then I got started. It was very exciting, and then I kind of got sidelined because I came down with a wicked cold, and then I think I got a 24-hour flu on top of that, or maybe I ate some bad lettuce. I'm not sure. So that didn't go so well. You would think that would mean that I would get to read more books because I'd stay home from work, but the amazing thing about our times is that now, even when you're sick, you still have to work from home. So, so I was generally working in the morning and then so exhausted by noon. I was sleeping through the afternoon, so it was just the evenings I had anyway. And I didn't get through nearly as much as I wanted to. And then this weekend, the weather's just been so amazing. So, and I still had a bit of a cold. But I still wanted to go out. So yesterday, I had to go into town and do my grocery shopping and all my errands. But then on the way back, I stopped for a hike. So that kind of took up some time. I did get to read yesterday evening. And then today, like, my house was a disaster because I had been sick all week. So, and it's so funny because when I went out for my hike, in the back of my mind, I'm like, if anything happens to me on that hike and somebody has to come in here to sort through my stuff, I'm going to just be mortified. And then I realized I'd be dead and I wouldn't really care anyway. But I really needed to do something about that today and get myself sorted out and organized for the week. So I just didn't really have much time for a readathon. And that's exactly why I kind of, in the back of my mind, thought, I don't know how much readathoning and stuff like that I'm going to be able to get involved in, really. But you know what? It's fun anyway. And I don't think there's a medal. So, the other thing is, I really prefer to log my books here right after I read them, just because I'm getting to be an old lady and I kind of forget things. So I would have preferred that, but then I was just too sick to do that. So I'm doing them now all together. But it just, I may have forgotten some things that I had found interesting or were good, but we'll give it a shot anyway. The first book that I ended up reading was Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. My picture is very grainy. It's one thing when you live up north, you're always fighting to get things done before you lose the light. Like everything. We only have, right now, I think we have 6 hours of light. And I'm actually trying to do this really quickly because I want to go out for my run before it gets dark. Not that I don't mind running in the dark, but I would like to see the sunset. So I'm trying to do this really quickly. But the first book that I read was A Room of One's Own. I decided I would start with the very, very shortest one just to make myself feel good. I was a little afraid of it because I've tried starting it twice before and I never got past the part where she's describing going out to dinner or out to lunch and then out to dinner, and I was just like, I don't get the point of this. So it had been recommended to me by a very good friend of mine a long time ago, and I just never could get past that part. So I kind of this time gave myself permission to just like skip through it, because when it started, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember why I can't get through it, because I haven't tried this in absolutely years, decades probably. So I gave myself permission to just skip through it. And yeah, as I was reading it, but then when I got past that, it really did become quite interesting. So her whole thesis is essentially that in order to be a writer, you must have money, the luxury of money, because you need to be able to have the time to sit and write, and you need to be able to separate yourself from others. And the reason that most women have not had a chance to excel at writing has been, or to be exceptional at it, has simply been because they lacked access to that that kind of economy. And it was interesting for me to read it just because we're now, just in the last couple of decades, coming to a point where women do have more of an access to that kind of economy. But still, you're like, if you're me, well, you're working, 55 hours a week. And so to have that money, and so you have the money, but you don't necessarily have the time, and you have the situation, but you don't necessarily have the time. Honestly, what were some other thoughts that I had? I loved her descriptions of these fearful, angry men, and how she kind of suggests that they're where is it? And I don't know. Yet he was angry. I knew that he was angry by this token. When I read what he wrote about women, I thought not of what he was saying, but of himself. When an arguer argues dispassionately, he thinks only of the argument, and the reader cannot help thinking of the argument too. Then if he had written dispassionately about women, had used indisputable proofs to establish his argument, and had shown no trace of wishing that the result would be one thing rather than the other, one would not have been angry either. One would have accepted the fact as one accepts the fact that a pea is green or a canary yellow. So be it, I should have said. But I had been angry because he was angry. Anyway, she does a lot of referencing angry men. Also, at some point, I realized, like, she was the originator of the Bechdel test. Like, if you get to the end, she talks about how in literature, women really are only there as objects. It was very hard, and it still is, I think, or harder, to find stories and narratives where women are, well, actually not so much. I actually have read lots of good literature that involves women and their relationships, so maybe not so much. But back then, literature really lacked strong females and women who were interacting but not necessarily talking about a man, because generally, if you know about the Bechdel test, that's the measure of it. Or like, are there any women? Do they have, like, I think in the movies, it's like, are they on screen for more than a certain amount of time? And when they're on screen, are they talking about something other than a man, or are they there just to further the character of the man? And that's kind of, she was talking about that in books, and I was kind of blown away by that. And I did a little researching into that and kind of went down that rabbit hole for a little bit. So I'll throw up some side note links down there at the bottom. My very favorite passage in this, I'll just make note of that here before I carry on. Oh my goodness, I'm already at 12 minutes. By hook or by crook, I hope that you will possess yourselves of money enough to travel and to idle, to contemplate the future or the past of the world, to dream over books and loiter at street corners, and let the line of thought dip deep into the stream. And I just love that notion, and I do hope that most of us have kind of figured out a way to make that happen for us. Maybe not every minute of every day, but in some small way throughout our week, or even our months, if that's all that we can carve out. Okay, what am I at here? I am at 13 minutes. I'm going to do this in 2 parts. So the next part is coming up.